Hey everybody, welcome to another Flatware Friday, which is our weekly chat as we talk about all things flatware flipping, flatware, silverware, cutlery, whatever it is that you call it. We find these items at thrift stores, yard sales, estate sales, and we flip them for a profit on eBay or Etsy or the platform of your choice. So it can be fun, it can be profitable. We've talked about a few different categories and things the last few weeks. So thank you all for joining me on those. I also today wanted to just talk about a couple brands, kind of like do a little brand spotlight. A couple brands that maybe don't get talked about as much or get overlooked a little bit, but they're definitely ones that we can add to our reselling Rolodex. Maybe not the highest money, the fastest selling, but definitely worth taking a look at. And those two brands that we're going to talk about today are Yamazaki and WMF. Both of those brands, I found flatware in the last couple of weeks at the thrift store. Actually, in one day, I found Yamazaki and WMF at one thrift store and went to another thrift store and found more WMF, but in a different pattern. And so the Yamazaki I found, now that I'm on this camera, let's just take a look. A couple things I can show you about the Yamazaki. Okay, so when I saw it in the flatware drawer at the thrift store, sorry about the noise, I just, I didn't know what the brand was going to be, but I knew it was going to be good just by sight and by feel, right? It's got a nice heft to it. It's kind of got a satin finish. It's got that kind of mid-century or kind of modern looking design to it. Just a nice looking piece of flatware. And it feels good in your hand, okay? So then I flipped it over. Now the thing with Yamazaki is sometimes it's printed, the name is printed or engraved on the handle. Sometimes it's printed on the back of the bowl of the fork or spoon or whatever, and it fades over time. So it can be hard to read sometimes. So if you are finding flatware that you think is something, but you can't see it, try to get a mark or anything. Try to get into the best light possible at your thrift store, whether it's a window or just, sometimes you just kind of have to angle it in all sorts of different directions in order to see it. Or dig around, look for the knives. Sometimes what's printed on the blade of the knife is clearer than what's printed on a piece that's gotten more use. Find the soup spoons or something like that, something that doesn't get as much use. Sometimes the printing is better on those pieces. Anyway, so I could see on here that it said Yamazaki, and it said Steenberg. Yes, and it says Japan. So Yamazaki is one of those brands that it's kind of hit or miss as far as like how well it sells. I have had Yamazaki that sells super fast. I have had Yamazaki that sits and sits and sits in my store for a long, long, long time. When I had a lot of flatware listed, there were some pieces I was just kind of a list it and forget it kind of thing. I just threw them in there, and that was back in the day. Now your listings sometimes disappear if you let them sit too long without any kind of action. So I tend to renew and relist, and that probably would have helped back then too. But anyway, I'm digressing as I usually do. This is Flatware Friday. It's just a little friendly chat about flatware. Doesn't have to be formal, right? Okay. So that was the Yamazaki I found. I found forks, I found knives, only 1 teaspoon, only 1 solid fork. So I just have them divided up, and I'm selling the dinner forks together. I put the teaspoon and solid fork together, the 3 dinner knives together, and 3 tablespoon, place spoon, dinner spoon, whatever you want to call them. I put those together, and we'll just see how those do. Then I found the WMF I found there was basically just a fork and a fork. So there was a dinner fork and a salad fork. We'll take a look at it. The pattern turned out to be torso, I think it's called. And when I found it, I wasn't super excited, even though I love to see WMF Cro-Margon. I love to see it, but it was made in Korea. So sometimes that will have an effect. A lot of times with WMF, there's an older version of the pattern. I'll show you that in a minute. And then there's a newer version of the pattern. The older one will sell for more money. But it's a WMF, so I wasn't going to leave it behind. Can just list these together probably. There's not a whole lot of information about that pattern on eBay in the last 3 months. There's a few listed, some listed, but not much or nothing in solds for the last 90 days. But if you go into Terapeak, you can find, I found some solds and things like that. So, you know, not getting rich on those 2 forks, but I love finding WMF, and so I was happy to pick it up. Then the last thrift store of the day I found, it was kind of funny, a little confession here. There was a woman ahead of me in the flatware, and I don't know, I start to get antsy when I hear people digging in the flatware. And it should teach me to just go into a thrift store and go straight to the flatware. But I always work my way to it, and then all of a sudden I hear somebody digging, and I'm like, no! But anyway, that's just, you know, there's enough flatware to go around, people. And it was definitely someone who was just looking for some good forks. That's all she wanted. And so I know she got a few of these, but what was nice, I kept trying to tell myself, she kept like, what's the word? She kept rhapsodizing, is that right? She was just in rhapsodies over these like really well-made forks. And I was like, oh, just let them be Cambridge. Just let them be, because Cambridge has a nice solid set of forks, right? I'm like, just let them be Cambridge. And then I said, you know what? You just need to get over yourself, like go to a different part of the store. And so I go to the other part of the store, finally circle back around to the flatware before I leave. And there's a ton still left. So I got dinner forks and salad forks. There were no teaspoons, which I don't think either someone else had already gotten those or something. Anyway, so I pick them up and flip them over, and sure enough, WMF Cromargan. And I was just like, okay, breathe, there's plenty. She got what she needed, and like, why am I so possessive over flatware, over like stainless forks? I don't know. Sometimes that reselling thing just, you know, takes over our better nature. Okay, so this pattern is called Wave. It is also made in Korea. So again, not like one of the main big ones, but there was, oh, I forgot to look for it. There was one other WMF fork, and I think it was actually in the first thrift store, and that one might actually be good. I'll go hunt it down, and I'll insert a little clip in here if I figure out what that one's all about, okay? But I think that one was marked WMF Cromargan, and it could just be one of the more well-known patterns, and that one actually might be worth a little bit more. So we're gonna look at some stuff on the computer in a minute, but first of all, I also wanted to share, this has got nothing to do with Yamazaki or WMF, but it has to do with Oneida. And so my friend Mitzi, her and I have been slinging vintage for a while, like together on the interwebs. And I just know her through Facebook and from different groups from a long time ago, blogging together, all that kind of thing. And so she messaged or put a post on Facebook that she tagged me in, that she had found a really good flatware score at Goodwill. And can you guys hear that? Is there a noise? I'll try to get that out. And I hear Mr. Pishposh using the blender. Anyway, she was like, I might have had this really good score, and she did. She found a lot of this one pattern of Oneida flatware that was, I told her, I said, I feel like I heard about this pattern a long time ago, but it has not been on my recent radar. So anyway, I am going to show you that pattern so that it can be in your little Rolodex, because, you know, keep an eye out for it. But I do want to point out too that she mentioned that it was good. It felt good. Like I said before, right? How it feels. It felt good, and it was marked Oneida USA. So she said it was a no-brainer. I'm gonna sneeze. It was a no-brainer, and so she was like, of course I'm gonna get it. But then she looked it up later and was like, oh my goodness, like it was worth a lot more. So let's take a look at that first, then we'll talk about the other two companies. Okay, so here it is. We're on the replacements website, and the pattern is called Capello by Oneida Silver. You can see it was discontinued 96 to 2012. So discontinued, that's going to jack the price a little bit. You can't just still get it on Amazon as new. And so we've got, let's see, a 4-piece place setting, 5-piece place setting. So 5 pieces of flatware for $239. Now, again, we've talked about replacements prices. They're higher than what you're going to get on eBay. But you can use it as a guide, kind of as a way to see what's going to be valuable and what's not. So there's forks. For one fork is listed on here for $100. So she found, oh, I forgot to look at what she found, but a whole big like 12 service for 12 or 8 or something. Mitzi, you can, I don't know. You don't have to leave a comment down below, but anyway, congratulations on your amazing flatware find. Let's look at eBay's prices. And right off the bat, here's the solds. We have 2 teaspoons that sold for $70. And if I'm not wrong, this is your listing, isn't it, Mitzi? So she's already started selling some of those pieces. As you can see with the pattern, gives you an idea of what the pattern looks like. The knives are like a pistol grip, they call that. And we have another one of her listings, 2 dinner forks for $100. So basically getting about half the price of what replacements is asking. So a quarter to a half is generally like where I kind of try to land as well. And a half is definitely really good. So very nice little find you had there. So Oneida Capello, something to keep an eye out for. This one's over on replacements. It said it was community, part of community. She says hers are marked USA. So that's not unusual for there to be different back stamps on certain patterns. Okay, and then let's see. Let's talk about Yamazaki first. So we've got, this is the Yamazaki website, tableware. It's just talking about the history of it a little bit. I don't know, maybe it's just me. I kind of like to, when I do these little research things, I kind of find little tidbits that I think are like super interesting. So it started in 1918, right? So it's been around a while. It talks about the turning point in the 1950s, about like the manufacturers were outsourcing flatware production to Japan, and then just the whole agreement between the countries and things like that. Then they decided, instead of using an exporter, let's see where it was. In 1980, they founded their own distribution company on Madison Avenue. And so instead of, oh, where did my little thing go? Oh yeah, that's the next tab. Okay. Instead of like using a exporter, they decided to do the distribution themselves, right? So it said they learned quickly in the American market the importance of design and marketing. This is what I found interesting. We solicited 3 famous fish restaurants in Miami, Boston, and Seattle where celebrities dine to use our uniquely designed cutlery to promote our name and products. Among a series of our cutlery designs developed, a one-of-a-kind cutlery in the shape of fish made a splash in the marketplace. Over the past 20 years in the U.S., the fish cutlery has been the best seller in our collection. Okay, and then there's some other things that they had. They were honored there was a Nobel Prize winner's anniversary dinner, and they provided the flatware for that, things like that. So just interesting little background about this Japanese company. A lot of Yamazaki, if you look like where to buy it, these days, like it sells at Neiman Marcus. It can be Pottery Barn, Crate and Barrel, Amazon, you can find it. So I'm assuming a lot of department stores and things like that. So if we look over at replacements, this is the Yamazaki page. And if you don't change it at all, replacements will show the patterns from in the most popular order. So not necessarily the most valuable, but the most popular, what they sell the most of. It kind of gives you a little hint of how a pattern will do on eBay as well. And if you look, the very first pattern is the one that he was talking about. And it was called Gone Fishing. Isn't that cute? So anyway, I was like doing research for this. Look, there's a little eye. Anyway, I was doing research for this flatware, and I was like, oh, this is definitely on my be on the lookout BOLO list, right? This is going to be what I want to find. And then I was researching what I have sold in Yamazaki, and I've sold pieces in this. Oh my goodness. I'm like, the brain. But it was years and years and years ago. I sold some cocktail forks, and I sold a serving fork. And I think they were just pieces that I found in a bag of flatware at Value Village. But anyway, I would still like to find it. The prices are not, again, they're not like the highest. Like there might be some other flatware, the Oneida flatware sells better. But as far as popularity, as far as knowing that this flatware will sell most likely fairly quickly, And then there are some pieces that will sell higher than others in that flatware, in that pattern. Okay, so if we just go back, we can see some of the other patterns. And then coincidentally, the third one here is called Cache or Cache. And I don't know if the accent is supposed to be on it or not. But anyway, so let's just say Cache. But the Mitzi, who I mentioned earlier with the Oneida flatware, in one of my last videos, she commented that she had found some Yamazaki flatware. And I think it was my what sold video, because I sold a little bit of Yamazaki last week. And so she said, I just found Yamazaki. And this was the pattern she found. So look at those forks. Aren't those cool? And I just want to shop where she shops for flatware. That's all I'm saying. I didn't know it was such a good area to source flatware. Okay, so here's some the patterns. The one thing to keep in mind with Yamazaki, like I've said before, some pieces are gonna fly, and some, especially serving pieces, I've had just sit and sit and sit. I was looking through some flatware, and I know I've got flatware that had been listed in the past that's not currently listed. That'll be a whole project to kind of go through and probably have to relist or even just donate some of my older flatware. But I did see a couple, I think they were serving pieces that were not listed, that it would be nice to see if they're even worth putting on here. So here's Old Denmark. That's the pattern I found the other day. I think it's hilarious that there's a pattern called Bolo. It always makes me laugh when I find it, and that's probably one of the Yamazaki patterns I have found the most. But a lot of the pieces have a gold accent. So I remember passing up a lot of Yamazaki in the Seattle area at thrift stores because the gold was just too faded and too worn. It just the flatware didn't look good anymore. So I usually pass on pieces that's the case. So Yamazaki did a lot of that gold accent flatware, as you can see. Okay, we talked about the marks on the back that possibly could be faded. And then if we pop over to eBay, there are definitely some pieces that are worth good money. I just have it sorted from ended recently. Here's some solds, some new in the package. There's Bolo. That's one of that pattern that I was just talking about. Here's some Alexander with the gold on it. I've sold that before. Swivel, Cache with the gold accent. Okay, so lots of different patterns and pieces and things like that. under the Yamazaki name. I always take a second look at Yamazaki when I find it at the thrift store. And it might be one that if you hadn't heard of it before, you might overlook it. So I just wanted you to be aware of it. The other brand like that I definitely always pick up is WMF. And here's a mark right here. A lot of times you'll just see that mark like printed on the blade of the knife or something like that. But WMF, let's see, we've got since 1853, German tradition. So this is just a little run through of some of the history of it. And I wanted to say, let's see where I can find, here we go. What I wanted to say, what does WMF stand for? It does not stand for William Fraser or Fraser. Okay, from what I read and in my research, he was an importer. William Fraser was an importer, and he did import some WMF flatware. But he is not where WMF comes from. Okay, so you'll see it on a lot of listings on eBay. You'll see WMF and then parentheses, people put William Fraser. That's not what WMF stands for. WMF stands for this. Württembergisch Metallwarenfabrik. Okay, so basically it's the town, the place where this metal factory was located. And that's what WMF stands for. Okay, so there we go. They started off with silver-plated items, things like that. Here we go. It's written all out here. There was 2 companies that merged, became WMF in 1880. 1883, they did their first flatware. So you can find some silver-plated flatware as well. Let's see the date on that. 1911. Here's some of the history of their company. If you want to look through it. This one was mentioned. Something I wanted to say that I've seen at thrift stores. It says WMF produced and supplied hand-finished decorative household products throughout the world. The Icora range, and then they had a stained glass metalware. They had a good reputation from that. So and this was like during the 20s and further on into the mid-century. Now the Icora stuff is probably the only WMF stuff that I do not pick up. If it has WMF on it, I probably pick it up. But here's kind of what the Icora stuff looks like. And I have bought it in the past. It looks like this. And it's really nice looking. And it's mostly like if there was substantial pieces in that finish, I wouldn't mind picking them up. But a lot of what I have found are just like these little leaf-shaped trinket dishes or just little tiny trinket dishes. And that's kind of what I end up finding. You know, and see the prices are just kind of so-so. So I usually skip those. That's all I'm saying. But the WMF in general is a brand that I will pick up pretty much anything that I find in that brand. Okay, so that was mentioned. They had cookware. And then here we go. This is what I wanted to talk about. The word Chromargan and what that means. WMF rust-free stainless steel cutlery. It talks about the introduction of the first rust-free stainless steel cutlery. They started producing more of these rust-free stainless steel items for the dinner table. After World War II, rust-free Chromargan stainless steel increasingly replaced silver-plated products in private homes. Okay, so Chromargan is just their proprietary name for their formula for their rust-free flatware. Okay, and so it doesn't mean that there won't ever be rust or stains or anything like that. They will just hold their stainlessness longer than other maybe combinations of flatware, of like the metals that go into stainless. Okay, so there was the 1950s, Wilhelm Wagenfeld was a designer. They talk about it being the Wagenfield era. A lot of that mid-century look comes from that era. Okay, so then it just kind of goes on. Look at that picture, all those knives. It says they successfully manufactured kitchen knives at the Haingen factory in southern Germany. Little knife factory, that's kind of cool. I just love pictures like that. Okay, so that's the story of WMF. If we pop over to replacements, what's nice about both of these companies, Yamazaki, WMF, they're not huge, right? There's not pages and pages and pages of patterns. All of the patterns I just found my own by just kind of scrolling down the page and looking for the one that it looked like. Oh, look, there's one called Montana. I wonder if I've sold that before. It's possible. Okay, so here's the one wave that I found. And a couple of that other one was, what did I say? Torso. I think that's even further down in popularity. So not major scores or excitement with this particular WMF flatware. But it will make me money because I paid like 20 cents a piece. Anyway, Nordica. Oh, this is another thing. As you see, Pilgrim, it says Older Germany Stainless. Line is the name of another one, Older Germany Stainless. These are just going to be more sought after than, here's another one, Laurel, Older Germany, as in they're made in Germany, as opposed to some of the later ones. This one says Line, Newer Stainless, right? So the prices, let's see if there's a difference in the pricing. We've got, so these are Line, the ones that are marked Germany. A fork is $40, a salad fork is $50. And then if we go back over to the slowest computer on earth, did I even hit it? Maybe not. Yep. It's just finally catching up with what I wanted. Okay, so if we come down to the newer stainless, let's see if there's a difference. Oh, look at this. Okay, that's weird. So the fork in the newer stuff is more expensive, but the salad fork in the newer stuff is less expensive. Anyway, what are you gonna do? I'm just gonna, oh, a teaspoon is $129. Nuts. It must be harder to come by. Anyway, so the point being also is that you wanna make sure you make note of it. It's nice to find the older stuff. It's fine to find the newer stuff, but you also want to make sure you just mention in the title or in your description or show a picture of the back stamp or something like that so that that the buyer knows which one they're getting. This happens in a few different brands. If it's made in different countries, there's just a little bit of difference, and sometimes people want to match it up to the one that they currently have if they're just buying it as replacements. Okay, then if we look over at eBay, here are some examples of some solds. We've got 484 results for just the WMF Chromargan stainless flatware. So we have a couple different brands. Here's some child's cutlery. It looks like it's missing a little piece. Here's an example of someone put William Fraser in their title. It's totally not necessary. I guess there is some flatware that does say Fraser on it, but that was having to do with the time that they were importing. He was importing it, but he had nothing to do with the making of it. So unless your flatware says Fraser, I wouldn't even bother putting it in the title. It just confuses things. But I mean, it's understandable why someone back in the day thought WMF stood for that, but it doesn't. And so you don't need to put that in your title. The older replacements.com stainless flatware book has WMF under William Fraser, so they didn't even know either. Their website doesn't mention anything about it, but the older books are already printed, so there's nothing they can do about it. Okay, so here's some just an idea of some flatware to keep an eye out for. Okay, that's cute. Little grapefruit set. Okay, so I think, yep, that's just the iCore. I think that's all I was going to share with you today as far as Flatware Friday. As usual, leave me a comment down below. If you found any great flatware lately, have you been selling any flatware? Any bolos or, you know, patterns or anything like that that you want to let me know about, feel free to do so. If you're new to my channel and flatware selling and things like that, we have a couple more videos. We've been doing Flatware Friday for a few weeks here now, and so we have some other information about flatware. But if you have any questions in yourself about flatware, about flipping it, or something you would like me to cover, feel free to leave a comment. Otherwise, I am going to leave a link to a couple other of our Flatware Friday videos right here so that you're able to click and learn a little bit more about flipping flatware. And we'll see you sometime later on, but we'll have another Flatware Friday next week. Talk to you guys later.